So this video is for the level 2 apprentices, year 1. I've emailed all of you this phase test, which is the knowledge of removing and replacing light vehicle chassis units and components. So we've done a little bit of work on this, but I haven't given you a lot of resources. So what I can do is, if you need them, I can send you some resources, but in absolute honesty, a lot of this test and a lot of the things that you're looking at can be easily found online. So my expectation would be that you look at the questions, look at what it's trying to address. Some of it you should know anyway, in absolute honesty. If you don't, the internet's a powerful resource. Do your research and have a look. So question 1 is all about tyres. And what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for maximum detail, okay? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to lay it out, question 1 on one sheet of paper. So obviously if you're doing a Word document, first page will be question 1, second page question 2, third page question 3, and then the fourth page will be question 4. That way, when I mark it, it's so much easier to then mark and give you an accurate result for each question. So if we look at question 1 here, it's worth 25 marks, and I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit. Obviously it's looking at tubeless tyres to tubed tyres, and it's then looking at the tyre markings. Now, a lot of you have done a lot of work on tyres, so I'm expecting you to know exactly what all of this means. With the I, this is basically 5 points that are extension from B. So it's looking for the width, the aspect ratio, the wheel trim. All you have to do is write which identification on there is what that's talking about. I'll be honest with you, that's simple. I think you could do that no problems. So what's the load index? Do some research, find out what load index is, and then you'll be able to answer that really easily. Now, 3 legal requirements relating to tyre tread pattern. So obviously there's the obvious one, 1.6 mil, okay, over 75% of the width and the whole circumference. We know that. That's an easy one. I'm expecting you to find 2 more. There are some resources out there. I think AA do a really good resource and the RAC do a really good resource. So let me just push down with that. Question 2. So question 2 is about the braking system, and you've got the drum brakes, self-servo action. What we mean by that is when you've got a leading and a trailing setup. So you need to be researching leading and trailing drums and shoes. Now, in this situation, what happens, because of the direction of the drum, it's rotating in a certain direction when the vehicle's moving forward. As you apply the brakes and the hydraulic fluid acts on the wheel cylinder, when the pistons inside the wheel cylinder press out, what they do is they actuate the shoe in one direction, which then with the rotation of the drum causes it to stick even harder to the drum. And then in the other direction, on the trailing side, it actually pushes it away slightly. So ultimately, you end up with one shoe wearing down more than the other, and you end up with this self-servo action. It's basically assistance on the brakes caused by the rotation of the drum. So then you've got to state advantages of disc brakes. That's pretty obvious. Very easy to research that. You can have a look. Now, drawing schematic diagrams of the dual circuit, that's pretty simple. What we're looking for there is we're looking for, excuse the updates coming up, sorry about that, that's all of the colleagues and that communicating. We're looking for 2 different braking lines that are dual circuit, which allow the car to still brake in the event of an accident, okay? So that's why we're using it, and that's what we're looking at. There's the X split or diagonal split, and there's front to back. You'll never have a side to side, and you can have a look at why and what that would cause. Hygroscopic, obviously brake fluid has the ability to absorb moisture. That makes it hygroscopic. So just explore a bit more about brake fluid, a bit more about what happens if it does absorb moisture, what happens to the boiling point, and then think about how we eradicate that problem, how we service it, how long the service life should be. And that's your braking one done. When we look at question 3, it's all about steering systems, which I have given you quite a lot of information on. I did give you a PowerPoint printout, which is going to give you pretty much all of this. So state 2 advantages of rack and pinion, we've been over that, you should know that. State 2 advantages of using power assisted over manual, again, nice and simple one, okay. Bit of research on hydraulic power assisted steering or electronic power assisted steering was going to give you all the information you need for that. Draw a simple schematic diagram showing the main parts of the rack and pinion. Again, type in schematic diagram of a rack and pinion power assisted steering system and it will come up with a great drawing that you can then draw. I don't mind if you want to include the diagram from online, this is coursework. I would rather you drew it and if you took a picture, so a good way of doing this if you want to do it online is to draw it on a piece of paper, take a photograph, attach the photograph to the Word document. And then you've got to state the purpose of a ball joint. Again, you lot work in the industry, ball joints, replace them to a penny, so I'm expecting you to be able to do that, no problem. State reasons why a variable pitch rack and pinion system is sometimes used. Explain how this is achieved and draw a diagram to support your answer. On this question, what I'm looking for, I gave you a slide which had variable pitch rack and it had a graph which showed the steering effort from lock to lock and it compared the steering effort on a normal rack to a variable pitch rack. All you need to do is draw both of the diagrams that are on that slide. You should be able to find that. If you can't, let me know. And then state 3 advantages of using electric power type sister steering. One of them being obviously economy. We're not driving it from the engine, are we? So that's a simple one you can write down. There's a couple others that you can have a look at. Question 4, this is the last question. Again, worth 25 marks. So this is just all about the suspension system, which we have been over a little bit on. Explain the purpose and operation of an anti-roll bar. That's a simple one. You do a bit of research on Google. It's going to give you drawings that you can draw down. Again, draw it, scan it, take a photograph of it, put it into a Word document. 3 advantages of independent front suspension. So looking at a McPherson strut potentially, or looking at double wishbone suspension, and then looking at the advantage of the suspension if it's independent over non-independent. So if you look at a solid rear beam axle, that is non-independent. So have a look at a solid rear beam axle, have a look at a McPherson strut or a double wishbone type suspension, and just compare them. Just compare what the advantages of having it independent from the other side. Then you've got to draw a McPherson strut, simple. And then you've got to state what checks you carry out before fitting a McPherson strut. So just list all the checks you would do on a service. List the checks you would do to the damper, the checks you would do to the coil spring, the checks you would do to the top mount, what you might check ball joint wise, what you might check on the bushes, how you might check it, what tools you might use, and just really go into detail. I hope that helps. This is obviously quite a long one, so it's going to take me a while to upload, but I hope it helps. This is LVO4 chassis technology, and this is help for the apprentices, year 1 apprentices. Okay, thanks for your time.